I looked to my right. I saw hundreds and thousands of young people, many of the young volunteers of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. I looked to my left, and I saw many young people, young men, in the trees, trying to get a better view of the podium. Then I looked straight out, and I started speaking.
It only takes a spark to get a fire going, and soon all those around can warm up to its glowing. That's how it is with God's love. Once
my friends. Good morning. Good morning. I wonder if you will help me start this service off right with our call to worship. Holy One, eternal now, we give you thanks that you are among us. We thank you for the gift of your creation, for the gift of family, of friends, for the gift of stories, for the gifts of learning and knowledge, for the gifts of questions and doubts, for the fire of enthusiasm, for the wind of reason, for all we understand, for all that remains a mystery, for your eternal presence in and through it all. Joyfully we give thanks. Well, let's give thanks, my friend. We got to rise up again in body or spirit and kick this service off right with a beautiful rendition. We haven't sung in a while. Joyful, joyful, we adore you. Faith United Church of Christ on this luckily Fred-free morning here in Dunedin, Florida. We dodged another one, didn't we? Though we hear Grace is coming right behind, huh? Oh, geez, let the dart games begin, right? Yeah. Welcome, my friends. Any visitors we have with us, we are so delighted to have you here. First-time visitors, return visitors, we're so happy you're here. To our online community, we welcome you as well, and to anyone who's visiting with us online, we're delighted to have you with us this fine Sunday morning. If you are visiting with us, go ahead and sign the friendship book in the gathering space. We can get you on the newsletter list, or if you're online, go ahead and just send an email to office@faithucc.org. We'll get you on there as well. Hey, a couple of reminders. Obviously, we're in masks again, right? We know that. Except for when we're singing or talking, that'll be the only exceptions. Thank you for abiding by that as best you can. Always, of course, mindful that those that might have some emotional difficulties with masks or even physical difficulties. So, everyone's welcome here, and we'll just make the best of what we can to keep people safe as we can. So I hope you'll always join us in this time, even with the masks. Hey, HEP reminder, HEP is back up and running. Dan Mann is over here. Are we doing every Wednesday, Dan, still? We need 2 volunteers per Wednesday. It's a great opportunity for you to serve food. I think now we're just kind of handing out food, but eventually we'll get back to serving some awesome people that call HEP, Homeless Empowerment Program, home. So talk to Dan if you're interested in volunteering, or just sign up on the sheet and pick a Wednesday. It's 3:30 to 5:30, Dan, or 2:30 to 5:30? 2:30 to 5:30 each Wednesday night. We need 2 volunteers. Come and have a really meaningful time. Hey, I want to congratulate you all. 177 pounds of food this week, going over to Done Eating Cares. Oh, awesome. And if you're online with us and you're like, I'd really love to help out people in that area to fill those food banks for hungry folks, you can always send a check and just make it out to Dunedin Cares, and we can get it to them. So there's ways for everybody to participate. I just want to go into a couple of concerns here before we go to some great joys today. Continue to hold Diane and Alton Feldman. They're probably online with us right now. They have been going through the ringer with Diane struggling with COVID-19, and Alton, who also tested positive, struggling to support her as best they can. They're just trying to keep her out of the hospital. I think there's an upturn, I think, but they've been through a really hard time. So hold Alton and especially Diane in your hearts and prayers in this time. And speaking of COVID, Joanne Dixon gave me a little note here that her brother's wife, Rita, sister-in-law, tested positive for COVID. So did their son, Noah, tested positive for COVID. So it's just going around like crazy right now. It really is, and it's really, really scary. So just be careful out there and hold these folks in your hearts and prayers. Also hold Kim Motisi. Kim might be online with us now. She's going through quite a time as she supports her mom, Cass, who has stage 4 lung cancer, as well as there was COVID scares there too. Some of her family contracted it, including her mom, who was struggling with stage 4 lung cancer. So to Kim and to Cass and to your family, we're holding you in the depths of our hearts and our prayers in this day. Peace be with you all. Also, of course, we have a connection to Haiti. Many of us here went to Haiti, the Be Like Brit orphanage. Haiti's already been in a world of hurt. We've been talking about them the last few weeks here, and many of you contributed funding to help add more armed security because of all the uprisings and the threat of violence. I thank you for that. But now they got hit with a 7.2 magnitude. Was it 2 or 1? It was bigger than the earthquake that struck in 2010. Luckily, it seems like it's not in an area where it was as densely populated structurally as Port-au-Prince. So we're hoping that, that was not intentional. Don't know what happened there, Michael. It's like we lost our PowerPoint. We're not going to be watching Disney. And we're not going to be watching Coda. I don't even know what Coda is, but that is not on the plans today. Michael's going to try and get that fixed for us. Anyway, we can roll through the service even if we don't have it. We would be okay, but let's hope that we don't come to that. So hold the people of Haiti in your hearts and prayers, and let's just hope that that death toll stays down. I think it's over 300 already, many missing. So really, hold Haiti in your hearts and prayers. Be Like Brit is okay, as is another place that Chuck and Pam Stiers, who are members here, work with, called For Haiti with Love. Both of them are okay. Kids are safe, and For Haiti with Love is operating and helping kids with burns. So hold Haiti in your hearts and prayers. Also, the people of Afghanistan. Oh my gosh, if you're watching this unfold, it's just a no-win situation in any way. Hold the people just trying desperately to flee for their lives with the rapid advances of the Taliban. Hold them in your hearts and prayers in this time. And Jenny Van Scoyak, one more, is struggling with severe back pain, and she can't be here today. She may be at home watching us. Jenny, we're thinking about you and hoping that you feel better as the day and week goes on, okay? Hey, I want to celebrate some joys. Brian Craig is in the house today. Brian Craig. Brian Craig was up doing a candidating weekend in is it Weymouth, Massachusetts. I don't know why I said it like that, but anyway, that was a terrible Boston accent. And he has a congregational vote up at Old South Union in Weymouth, scheduled for September 17th. So happy for you, Brian. Hate to lose you here, just hate to lose you here, but it's been a pleasure to watch your journey, and I think we're having rumors of an ordination sometime in October, right? Right? Leslie Etheridge is in the house, Karen, and Leslie's our regional conference minister, and she's saying yes, and she'll be a part of that. So I think we're looking at October 10th, so watch for more information on that. What a great thing to have happen. We have a baptism coming up and an ordination coming up, and that is pretty cool. Preston Kavanaugh turns 89 years old today. Preston is at home watching us. He's been going through some real health struggles, and he turns 89 years old today. Preston, we wish you the happiest of birthdays, and I think 89 deserves a birthday song. So for Preston and for anybody else, and you can just raise your hand that has a birthday this week, this is for you. Preston, anybody else? Happy birthday, Preston. And anybody else with birthdays? Okay, now we come to a kind of a really fun time in the life of our church, and it's a day that we recognize new members. You've all found your way here. You brought your spiritual journeys here and mingled it with the spiritual journey of this church, and today we get to celebrate 3 folks that are joining Faith United Church of Christ, and it's a blessing to do so. Marge, do you want to come up and no, you want me to handle this? Okay, I'll handle it. I think I can do this. So we have 2 people here that are joining, and we have a person online, in Penny Berryman and her family that is joining the church. She's with us coming from Massachusetts. Jenny's sister joining the church today, along with her mom and her other sister who are members here. And Penny, we're thinking of you today, and we welcome you to the community. And I also want to also call up Camille Lackey, if you could maybe just kind of step up to the front over here. And Donna Jean Williams, if you want to just kind of come on up to the front here. Hey, Wendy, can you bring these bags? And now it comes that time, I told you each about the 5-minute speech, right? No. Next week. To Penny, to Camille, and to Donna Jean, we welcome you. And I wonder if congregation online and here in this church will join me in our litany of welcome this day. Please join me. We welcome you to joy in this beloved spiritual community. As we walk together in the way of faith, we pledge to you our friendship and support. May God help us to teach and learn, trust and be trustworthy, forgive and be forgiven, serve and be served, love and be loved. May we live out our spiritual lives in community, whether in person or virtual, and engage the world through the Jesus way together. For your presence here, for the light you bring forth, for the gifts you bring to this place, we join our voices and say, welcome, friends. Woo, let's give a hand. Feel free to head back to your seats. Welcome to this community. We're so delighted to have you with us. How excited. It just brings such joy to me to welcome new members. I was going to have a little moment of center here, but I just want to say, I know there's just seems to be so much darkness right now, doesn't there? So much pain, heaviness. We feel out of sorts. Everything seems to be at war with everything else. Maskers, anti-maskers, conservatives and liberals, vaccinated and unvaccinated. And it's just a moment, I think, just to pause and just say, let's be here for one another. It's what we do as a community. I'm going to talk a little bit on how we are a Hesed community. I'll talk more about that in my sermon, but it means that we really look out for one another. And I think this is a time that we really need to do that. I know we are. We have ministry calls going out, and we're sharing news with one another and concerns, but it just, the times seem so heavy. I don't remember a heavier time in my life, I don't think. And I think we're all feeling it. So my door is always open. I'm here. If you want to talk, you want to have a cup of coffee, we'll wear our masks. It's too hot out, we can sit at different tables. I'm always available if you just want to have a chat and just take a burden off your shoulders. So, and I know you're there for one another as well, and I thank you for that. Peace be with you all. I invite you just to close your eyes for just a moment and rest in that spirit of God that is so powerfully alive in this place, and maybe breathe in a sense of peace just for a moment and let go of some of that anxiety I know we're all carrying. I hear these words from the great Celtic theologian, one of the best, John Philip Newell. May the angels of light glisten for us this day. May the sparks of God's beauty dance in the eyes of those that we love. May the universe be on fire with presence for us this day. May the new sun's rising grace us with gratitude. Let earth's greenness shine and its waters breathe with spirit. Let heaven's winds stir the soil of our soul and fresh awakenings rise within us. May the mighty angels of light glisten in all things this day. May they summon us to reverence. May they call us to life. Amen. Let us journey ever more deeply, my friends, into this time of worship together.
If we speak with the tongues of angels and have not love, we have nothing. If we gain all the world and its knowledge and have not love, we have nothing. If our faith is strong to move the mountains
morning. It warms my heart to look out and see all of your faces this morning. I wasn't expecting to see all of you. Our reading this morning comes from the book of Ruth, chapter 1, verses 1 through 18. In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land, and a certain man of Bethlehem in Judah went to live in the country of Moab, he and his wife and 2 sons. The name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife was Naomi. And the names of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem in Judah. They went into the country of Moab, and they remained there. But Elimelech, the husband of Naomi, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. These took Moabite wives. The name of one was Orpah, and the name of the other was Ruth. When they had lived there about 10 years, both Mahlon and Chilion also died, so that the woman was left without her 2 sons and her husband. Then she started to return with her daughters-in-law from the country of Moab, for she had heard in the country of Moab that the Lord had considered his people and had given them food. So she set out from that place where she had been living, and she and her 2 daughters-in-law, and they went on their way to go back to the land of Judah. But Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, "Go back, each of you, to your mother's houses. May the Lord deal kindly with you, as you have dealt with the dead and also with me. The Lord grant that you may find security, each of you, in the house of your husband." Then she kissed them, and she wept aloud. They said to her, "No, we will return and with you to your people." But Naomi said, "Turn back, my daughters. Why will you go with me? Do I still have sons in my womb, that they may become your husbands? Turn back, my daughters, go your way, for I am too old to have a husband. Even if I thought there was hope for me, even if I should have a husband tonight and bear sons, would you then wait until they were grown? Would you then refrain from marrying? No, my daughters, it has been far more bitter for me than you, because the hand of the Lord has turned against me." Then they wept aloud, and again Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her. So she said, "See, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. Return with your sister-in-law." But Ruth said, "Do not press me to leave you or to turn back from following you. Where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die. There I will be buried. May the Lord do thus and so to me, and more as well, if even death parts me from you." When Naomi saw that she was determined to go with her, she said no more to her.
So I thought I was in for a nice, quaint, easygoing journey this week. As I explored our second famous biblical couple in our sermon theme, a couple that Kathy Doucette pulled out of the basket last week, with the story of Ruth and Naomi. You just heard a little bit of that story from Beth Ann. Thank you, Beth Ann. From our reading, and I'll be honest with you, if you've never read the book of Ruth, well, there's not much more to it in terms of size, because it's only about 6 pages long. and that's including a lengthy introduction. It is a very short book. Now, I ask most folks who know the story, and you'll hear more often than not that it's like a heartwarming story about the fidelity of a daughter-in-law, Ruth, to her mother-in-law, Naomi, as Ruth pledges to stay with her after the death of her husband and travel back to Bethlehem and Moab, where they were living, from Moab. You'll hear that oft-quoted line, you just heard it, "Where you go, I will go." Or, in good King James lingo, "For whither thou goest, I will go. And where thou lodgest, I will lodge." Not sure what accent that was, but you get it, it works. "For whither thou goest, I will go." Just try this all day long. All sorts of, "For whither thou goest." Okay, that one does not work. It's a line that has been it's a line that's been a mainstay in wedding vows, countless wedding vows. And there's tons of songs about that one very line, and I've seen it on coffee cups, wall hangings, planters, and yes, whither I go, even on ashtrays. You can't make it up. Must be an Etsy thing. It's a well-known line, even if many do not know where it came from, but it's right there in our story today. So you heard the beginning of the story, and again, lucky for us, it's short, so I can kind of cliff note it in my own way, Mike's edited version for you before we delve into some other things that are happening around the story and the context. And we always know, you always hear me say, context is vitally important to every scripture text you'll ever read. So we'll pick up. So far you've heard about what happened in Moab, and that the trio begins to head back to Judah after the deaths of all of their men. And you heard how Naomi stops and she turns to Ruth and Orpah, not to be confused with Oprah. I've been making that mistake for a long time, I realized when I read this text. It's not Oprah, it's Orpah. And she insists the two women return to their homelands to be with their families. And Orpah says, "Yeah, okay." And she turns for home, but Ruth utters our line, and she decides to stay with her mother-in-law. So they go to Judah, and it turns out that Naomi has a kinsman, meaning that there's some kind of blood relation between them. And his name is, anybody know it? Anybody? Bueller? Boaz. His name is, I'm glad that got a reaction. Someone gets it. Someone gets it. His name is Boaz, and he's wealthy, and he owns vast lands that are farmed on. And well, Ruth, they get to the point of the story where Ruth is really hungry. And let me remind you, which we'll break open more in just a bit, that widowed women were at the mercy of society, more so than anyone. But there was a biblical law from Deuteronomy that states that the hungry, the poor, and widows were supposed to be allowed to walk behind the harvesters, gathering grain, who were also some of the poorest, and that they could then pick up the scraps. Look at that image up there. This artist did for photography. They could pick up the scraps that the poor harvesters had dropped or just refused to take because they weren't any good. So Ruth does just this. And she goes to gather grain because they are obviously starving. And while doing so, she catches the eye of Boaz. And he goes way out of his way to help her, inviting her to glean, which means to pick grains in his fields at any time. And he invites her even to a meal with him and his servants. He says, "I know all about you, and I'm so amazed at what you have done for your mother-in-law, Naomi." So we are told then that Ruth gleaned in Boaz's fields until evening and ended up on the threshing floor, as they call it, the place where grain is beaten out and separated from the stalk. I'm telling you this like I have any idea what that actually feels like I've done this. And she brings home a ton of grain to Naomi, like more than anybody would ever generally collect in one day. And Ruth tells the story of meeting Boaz to Naomi. And Naomi is thrilled, and she decides then and there that this pseudo-kinsman fellow Boaz would be an excellent husband for Ruth. So she hatches a plan in the end, where Boaz will be a redeemer for Ruth. A redeemer. And by redeemer, It means that if a woman is married and her husband dies, the husband's brother is legally obligated to marry her. But the problem is, woo, woo, you're all great today. But the problem is, in this case, Boaz is not Ruth's dead husband's brother. So that's not what's going on here, but it doesn't matter. Naomi goes ahead with the plan anyways, and like Frank Sinatra will do years later, she did it her way. Then we get to the scene that's described by many as an R-rated scene on the threshing floor. With all sorts of, there's all sorts of sexual connotations. It's not clear if that's even what happened. If Ruth's attempt, orchestrated by Naomi to seduce Boaz, worked on that threshing floor, but in the end, the story kind of goes along a little bit, and in the end we hear, this is a quote from the end of the scripture, the story, Boaz married Ruth. She became his wife, and he cohabitated with her. The Lord let her conceive, and she bore a son. And then the women said to Naomi, interestingly, not to Ruth the Moabite, that's what she's called through the whole thing, the women say to Naomi now, blessed be the Lord, who has not withheld a redeemer from you today. He will renew your life and sustain your old age, for he is born to your daughter-in-law who loves you and is better to you than 7 sons. We're then told Naomi took the child, and she held the child, and she became its foster mother. And the women, neighbors, named the baby. I don't know why that is, but that's just the way it goes. Saying a son is born to Naomi. That's interesting. They named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, and you know who Jesse was the father of? David. That's the end. Credits roll. Cute story, right? Cute story? Wrong. No, that's not. You see, that is what I went into this week. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, Mike, Kathy gave you a great one. This is going to be an easy week, a good redemption story to work with. It's going to be a pretty easy sermon to just kind of crank out and deliver. But then I began the work. And one article led to another, and one book led to another, and one website led to another, and then one scripture passage led to another, and on and on and on until the end, and I was just exhausted of this dang cute little story. Because responses and interpretations of it are all over the board. And some are really interesting. It's a story that appears kind of to be innocent and straightforward, though what lurks underneath it is sad and shocking. And what I think it means in the end, strangely, I think it can change the world. Let's look at a couple of the ways that it's interpreted. I want to share these with you. The most general way this story is interpreted is that it's a story of what it appears to be. And our famous biblical couple is one of the stories that portrays a positive picture of 2 women in the deep and abiding self-sacrificing relationship that Ruth gave up to accompany her mother-in-law and remain by her side, and that Naomi then reciprocated that relationship by carving out a new, good life for Ruth with her kinsman Boaz. It's a story then that sees God kind of quietly working behind the scenes in the hardest times of our lives and leading us from grief to pain to new lives of nourishment and love. Ruth and Naomi were both in a very difficult spot when our story began, but in the end they are blessed with new lives and new loves and a new little baby. Redemption, fidelity, trust, these are the heart of the story. I like that, I have to admit. It's beautiful when you see it from that vantage point, but you have to let a lot of stuff go to get to that takeaway, which we'll explore in a bit. But it's a meaningful story if you see it that way and use it that way. Second way of reading and seeking interpretation from the story is a fascinating and a quite controversial one I'd learned. I came across an article called Ruth and Naomi, Biblical Women Who Loved Each Other. Ooh, what was that? Intrigue. It was written by a woman named Kittredge Cherry. Really fascinating article, who very confidently makes the argument, along with many other scholars and theologians who make the same one, that Ruth and Naomi were in love romantically and are a model today for the LGBT community as a model of quote-unquote lesbian love. That's how the argument goes. Cherry asked the question in her article, this is a quote, were Ruth and Naomi lesbians? The same Hebrew word, dabach, is used to describe Adam's feelings for Eve and Ruth's feelings for Naomi. In Genesis 2:24 it says, therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. The way that Adam cleaved to Eve is the way that Ruth clung to Naomi. Quote goes on, countless couples have validated this interpretation by using their vows as a model of how spouses should love each other. Now we should note that the word for cling is used in all sorts of other places as well. Clinging to a sword, it's used that same word, dabach. Clinging closely to fleeing enemies so that they could not get away, or a disease clinging to someone's whole body. And there are all sorts of other uses. But it's a really interesting possibility, right? That was the case. And here, and like in the story of David and Jonathan, who also share a deep and profound love, we have a model for the LGBT community to celebrate same-gendered love. Wow, I think that's pretty cool. And I love it especially because it rankles so many of the anti-LGBT feathers. You wouldn't believe the responses I read to this article and others like it. But again, I think a strong case can be made here. I really do. One more disturbing. So those are a couple positive ways. But one of the more disturbing side of interpretations of this story, there are others floating around that the story is one of rape. Or as one commentator put it, the story symbolizes rape culture. Sharing a quote from an article from a fascinating website. Check this one out. It's called the Shiloh Project. This article was written by Deborah Kahn Harris, and she speaks of the theologian Will Gaffney. Have you heard of Will Gaffney? She's one of the best. She will challenge the heck out of you in any interpretation that you hold. She's fantastic. And she sums up Will's argument like this. This is a quote. That Ruth's relationship with Naomi amounts to sexploitation. Naomi, as a now childless and older widow, exploits Ruth's youthful, fertile body alongside sexual stereotypes about foreign Moabite women in order to ensure fertility for Naomi's clan and secure Naomi's own well-being. Ruth is suffering from a version of Stockholm Syndrome, so enamored of her mother-in-law and without anywhere else to turn that she is easy prey for Naomi. Ruth is sexually exploited, a trafficked woman whose story has been dressed up as a romance by the majority culture who benefit from her treatment. End quote. Well, that took a turn. That took a turn. One thing that just a great point there, though. I mean, you have to acknowledge that. One thing that the first two ways of seeing the story leave out, it has to be addressed. It has to be addressed, and that is the place of women, right, in ancient life. In the context of these stories when they were written. Now, my Cliff Notes version and the way that the story is often interpreted leaves out so much and frees you from not having to ask some really tough questions. Questions like, why were these women so poor in the first place? What was life like for women in general, and especially widowed women? And the answer is terrible. That's what life was like. It was terrible. There's a reason there are so many laws in Leviticus and Deuteronomy that specifically make mention of not oppressing widows in your land. Widows, women without husbands, were seen as the lowest in society. A woman's status depended on her father, her husband, her ability to produce sons, and if her husband dies, her status was dependent on a brother of her husband to redeem her. That language just sucks, doesn't it? If not redeemed, she will be in grave danger to evil, as well as homeless, because she can't own property. Women can't own property. Starving or forced into other ways to try to stay alive, if even just for one more day. comment I found really interesting, the Women's Bible Commentary I keep handy speaks to this about women in general in the Bible, and those today, perhaps, many of you who read the Bible. This is the quote. Women reading the Bible today have found themselves on alien and even hostile turf. Rarely, if ever, do women of the Bible get to speak for themselves. Rather, they are portrayed from the perspective of male authors and in the context of religious communities where authority finally came to be vested in men and where men's experience was the norm. Women are thus absent from the Bible as persons working out their own religious journeys. It is clear that women have always undertaken such journeys, but within the Bible itself, their legacy is not to be found. Rather, women appear, to use a metaphor from grammar, as direct and indirect objects, and not as subjects of the verbs of religious experience and practice, where aspects of their lives are described in stories and narratives, or where their behavior is prescribed, such as in legal or moral codes of both testaments, or where women's lives function as metaphors of religious realities, such as in the book of Hosea or the book of Revelations. Women are often flat characters, perfectly good or villainously evil, or objects at someone's disposal. So when I look at Ruth, I add in all that other detail from the stories that underlies it, its context that is too easy to dismiss. The story changes entirely, and now we have two women in the worst possible situation, starving, unable to own property, going to Judah to try and save their lives by depending again on a man to be the one to save them. One of the women, Ruth, is a Moabite, a despised sect of Israelites because they were believed to have been descended from the incestuous relationship between Lot and his daughter. That's a whole other sermon, which resulted in the birth of Moab. Get it? Again, that's for another sermon, but it points out her really fragile condition. So they somehow safely get to Judah, and things are so bad that they have to depend on moral laws to be able to feed themselves by picking up leftover and unwanted scraps in a rich man's field. They find Boaz, and in a really interesting scene on that threshing floor, we hear of Ruth having to pretty herself up to seduce Boaz, because again, her entire being in an extremely patriarchal culture depended on her being the object of a man. I'd say property, I guess. Jeez. So Naomi tells Ruth to wash and anoint herself and put on her best clothes and go down to the threshing floor. Then she says, and this is in the story, she says, wait, bless you. She says, wait till Boaz has eaten and gotten drunk, basically. And when he passes out, lay down at his feet. And then he will tell you what to do. Lay at his feet. Do what he tells you to do. Kind of changes the story a little bit, doesn't it? Not so cute anymore. This is where women were in this context, really in all of biblical context. And we need to always acknowledge that when we're reading these stories. Again, when reading from Scripture, we can never divorce the story from the context. The story and the context have to be held together to really get an understanding of what's going on. And in this context, let's be honest, women had a really, really, really hard life, an exploited life, a life that was at the whims of men, a life where they were seen only as objects to be controlled or used. And that is sad. And I wonder if times we're still kind of there. Have we changed all that much, do you think? I think a little. But we're still not there, are we? We're still not there. And I guess that is why I can't just call this just a light story of redemption, as so many do, of God working behind the scenes in life. I mean, God is very much present, but really in the background of the story. And that's a great theme, but there's so much more happening here. Personally, I think the story of Ruth is historical fiction, perhaps even written by a woman in a very difficult context. I think you can make a case for that. To demonstrate what in the Hebrew Bible is called chesed, which is a really hard word to translate into English. It's based on a deep understanding and love from one person to another, but beyond the bounds of romantic love, rather getting to like the heart of love. It's hard to translate. Loving kindness might be a good translation. Agape, you've heard that, right? Maybe a good translation, but it's even deeper than that, because it implies an element of justice and seeking the well-being of another through a common understanding of one's humanity and struggles, often that you're going through at the exact same time. That's the context. So cognizant of the context and the difficulties of women in this time, here we see two women. So I'm seeing it, and it may change. It may change by tonight. But I see two women here who care for one another deeply, either in a relationship sense or through a deep understanding of one another's similar plight in life. And they persevere together, and they overcome great odds to secure a future for themselves and one another in a context that was just simply stacked against them based on who they were and the circumstances that tried to hold them down. And in the end, we have a story of two women in perilous times of danger and evil sticking together to carry one another in a love that transcends all love. I mean, the story is just not simple. As I had always believed, it's not cute and light. I think as most people think, it's heavy with pain and loss and evil, but it's conquered by a love so powerful that I believe it can change the world. Now again, that's how I see it now. Text me later tonight, because I've changed. I'm all over the board. All over the board. But it is a difficult story to pin down. I think the story of Ruth is a Hesed story. I want to apply that to us, because I think we are a Hesed community. I believe we practice love here, but I also believe we go beyond the boundaries of love to something so much deeper, and that is Hesed. So let us always hold up this story of Ruth, even with its difficulties, as something representative of who we are. Let our motto be to one another, where you go, there I will go too. Let us always journey into the good times together, especially in these dang difficult times, and especially in the not so good times, but also in the good times. Let us be a Ruth community, recognizing the realities of darkness that surround us, but sticking together with a love so strong it can conquer anything that comes our way. That's something I take out of this story. I want to share a message in closing that further ingrained in me that we are a Hesed community. It's a powerful message that left me kind of in tears and just so proud of how this community lives out Hesed, or loving kindness. It's from Alton Corin, who's been in just the throes of COVID-19, in the throes of darkness. And he sent this to me on the outpouring of support that he and Diane, who is suffering right now from COVID-19, have received. And he asked me to share it with you today. He said, please share this with the congregation. His quote was, when Beethoven wrote the Ode to Joy in his Ninth Symphony, was he anticipating a brother and a sisterhood of man, one where love, unity, kindness, and compassion were ushered in as the life force and form of the benevolent angels of Faith UCC, whose spontaneous acts of generosity, along with the carriers of God's grace, are what they offer this world. Each of you is a star in the vast sky that I am grateful for. You live the words of Jesus, Buddha, Kuan Yin, and every representative of God. You have been the daughters and sons of Elysian that remind me that God is everywhere, especially in each of you. Thank you, blessed ones, for your outpourings of love and light. May God's greatest gifts and blessings be with you always. Alton. Thank you, Alton. That, my friends, is Hesed. That it is. That is the story of Ruth. At least right now. And I hope we live it always. Peace be with you, my friends. Amen. Now, we have an order of business in this famous biblical couples series. We're going to switch it up this time. We're not going to draw out of the basket because, well, we can go back to that if you're really disappointed. We can go back to the basket, but I thought this would be a little more democratic this time, so we're going to go on applause. So I've narrowed it down to these for next week. And you're going to help me choose. So I want you to just look it over for a second. And then if you're online with us and you're on Facebook, you can share in the Facebook comments. You're going to help me choose by applause for next week. Because then, it doesn't always rely on chance. Because I want to hit the sermons that you all want to hear. Because some of them are just way better than others, I think, in the end. So I'm going to go down the list, and I just want you to applaud if that's the one you want. And we're going to kind of try and discern where this whole thing's going, all right? Yep. And if we have a tie, we'll rely on our Facebook comments to break it. But we'll know before the end of the service. Okay. Who wants to hear the story of Jesus and the rich young man? I have a feeling that's how it was with Ruth and Naomi last week. Everybody's like, well, who the heck's Ruth and Naomi? Okay, David and Jonathan. Good. Jesus and Mary Magdalene. That's number one. Sodom and Gomorrah. Samson and Delilah. I hope that was just for my performance of that, I bet, right? David and Bathsheba. Moses and the burning bush. Famous biblical couple. Sarah and Hagar. Job and the whirlwind. Famous biblical couple, Job and the whirlwind. This is such a fun series. Pontius, Pilate, and Jesus. I think see if you agree with me, I think the winner was Jesus and Mary Magdalene. Was it not? All right, my friends. Next week, tune on in. I don't know where this one's going to go. Oh, my God. I'm already regretting putting it up there. Get me a lot of trouble next week, people. Thank you. Next week, tune back in to our famous biblical couple series, Jesus and Mary Magdalene. But in the meantime, let's continue to live hesed in all we do and are. Thanks, everybody.
Say
song is the heart of Hesed. It really is the heart of loving kindness, the heart of justice, the heart of being there for one another. Thank you. Join me in a little more intentional and deeper time of prayer together. Spiritual poet and mystic Rumi once wrote that prayer clears the mist and brings back peace to the soul. So let us journey into a time of peace and stillness, a time of silent prayer together. Oh, for the presence in our lives of that ground in who we have our very being and live and move, that eternal presence we name God. Let us offer up gratitude for that presence this morning. And for our loved ones that we hold in our hearts, for all those who are suffering around us, that we know and love this day. Those that we've lifted, Kim and her mom Cass, and Diane and Alton and Penny and her family, and Rita and Debbie and Noah, and of course Ginny Van Skoyak, and all those that we hold in the silent recesses of our hearts. Let us offer the fullness of our love and our support and our longing for wholeness, and our own sustaining presence and helping hand amidst the hard times. Of course, for areas of our world where earthquakes and storms and fires rage, create havoc and loss in the lives of people, let us hold sacred space and offer support as we can from afar. Hold Haiti in our hearts, be like Brit, and for Haiti with love, and of course, the people of Afghanistan and other areas where there's such suffering. Let us hold them in our hearts and in our hopes. Finally, for the week that was, with all that it held, let us let it go. And for a new week that lies ahead, with all of its challenges and stresses and joys and celebrations, let us find the confidence to meet it with courage and peace in our hearts. For all of these things and so much more that we hold within, we lift up in our prayers this day. Let's join our voices now, my friends, and pray that prayer that our brother Jesus taught us in those ancient hills long ago. A beautiful prayer about all having enough, the things they need to live, forgiveness, debts forgiven, the good life. Call it the Lord's Prayer. Please choose your most cherished image, whether that be Father or Mother or Creator. Please join me in the Lord's Prayer. Our Creator, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory now and forever. Amen, amen, and amen. Hey, we come to that time of our service now where I say thank you, thank you, thank you for all of your generosity and all of your giving. If you were moved by today's service and you're like, oh, dang it, I want to make a contribution today, well, you can do that. There's going to be plates on the back table. We're still not passing plates. Eventually we'll get back to to doing what we used to do, but Dan's going to put them on the tables in the back. So please use those to make a love offering for all that we do here, all that you are a part of, because your support helps keep the heartbeat of this place going. If you're online with us, or if you want to go home later and you're online, you can go to our website. There's a give link right at the top of our website. There's Venco, there's PayPal. You can use those to help fund the work that we do together. If you still want to make a contribution to Be Like Brit, to help them add some more guards and build some more walls, you can certainly do that. There is a Be Like Brit button on the website, I think in Venco and PayPal, I think both. Or you could just write a check and or put something in an envelope, and just make sure you label it, though. If you want to contribute to that Be Like Brit. We sent some money off to them last week, and we'll be happy to send off another check to help them in this time. But as always, I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you for all that you give to make this place such an awesome place. Thank you. Well, we got one more order of business before we all go on about our day and journey into a new week. We need to sing our way out of here for peace. And just a reminder, we're not having any hospitality now. I hate that we're not having hospitality. I really hate it that we're not having hospitality. I can't stand it, but it's where we are. And so we want to, the whole goal is just to keep open. So we're going to do the things to kind of cut some things where we might risk spreading something or getting someone sick. Masks come down during hospitality time. A lot of churches are going to that right now because they just want to keep their doors open. So I hope you'll understand that. And again, for me, hospitality is our communion, and we're really missing that right now. But we will be back to it the moment that we can. So thank you for your patience and your understanding. But now let's sing, and then let's go have hospitality in another way. Lots of opportunities out there. We need to sing for peace. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin in us.